The chime from my laptop was quiet, almost lost in the office hum. A new email. Subject line: "We need to talk." It wasn't from a client or a colleague. It was from Sarah, my wife of 12 years. The message body contained only 4 sentences. She was leaving. She was leaving me. For Mark, my boss. She said she was moving out that afternoon. Everything was arranged. She wanted an amicable split. I sat at my desk, the same desk I'd occupied for 7 years in the company I'd helped build. My name is Alex. I'm 38. I handled the systems, the code, the technical architecture that kept everything running smoothly. Mark was the man out front, the rainmaker, the networker, the guy who could charm a client into signing a contract twice the size they intended. He was good at that part. The part that required understanding how the service was delivered, the complexity behind the platform. Not his area. He left that to me. Sarah was the office manager. Efficient, organized, good with people, another face of the company, just like Mark. I'd met her here, back when the company was just Mark, me, and one administrative assistant. We got married 2 years later. Mark was best man. Looking back, I suppose I should have seen it coming. Sarah and I had become roommates mostly. Conversations were practical, about groceries or bills. The quiet was comfortable, then it became vast. Mark was always around. Loud, full of energy, the kind of person who fills a room. Sarah seemed brighter when he was in it. I was usually in my own quiet space, head down, focused on lines of code that had to be perfect, logical. Unlike relationships, I didn't feel shock. More like recognition. A pattern completing itself. I typed a reply to Sarah. 1 word. Okay. Sent it. Closed the laptop. Finished working on the data migration script I'd been debugging. It was complex, critical for a major client transition Mark had promised would be seamless. Seamless because I would make it so. I pushed the finalized script to the server. Sent my usual end-of-day report to Mark, detailing the successful deployment. Said goodnight to the few colleagues still there. I drove home. Her car was gone. Most of her things were gone. Just empty spaces, dust outlines on shelves, the faint scent of her perfume. The house felt hollow. I didn't try to call her. Didn't rage. What was there to rage about? The facts were simple. 12 years. Gone. For Mark. I got a box from the garage, put in a few things that were mine specifically. My father's old watch, a worn copy of Structure and Interpretation of Computer Programs, the ceramic mug my sister made in college. I put the box by the front door. Slept on the couch. The next morning, I drove to the office at precisely 8:55 a.m., same as any other day. Walked in, exchanged brief nods with the receptionist. Went to my desk. Opened my laptop. At 9 a.m., I typed a new email. Addressed to Mark. Copied to Human Resources. Subject: Resignation. Body: Please accept this email as formal notification that I am resigning from my position at company name, effective immediately. No explanation. No notice period. Just the statement. Mark was at my desk less than a minute later. His face was a mixture of disbelief and alarm. Alex, what the hell is this? You can't just quit. Effective immediately? We've got the Henderson project live next week. The new server cluster. What about the core platform? You'll figure it out, I said. I stood up, picked up the box by my chair. Sarah was standing in the doorway of her office, watching. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She hadn't expected this. Maybe she thought I'd argue, beg, maybe just disappear quietly. Alex, wait, Mark said again, stepping forward. I didn't stop. Didn't answer. Just walked past him, past Sarah, past the empty conference room, and out the front door. I didn't look back. My phone buzzed before I even got to my car. Mark. Then HR. Then Sarah. Texts. Missed calls. I silenced it. There was nothing left to say to any of them. My mind was already elsewhere, quiet, focused, on what came next. The quiet of the empty house wasn't peaceful. It was just quiet. I spent that first day sorting through the remnants of 12 years, packing things methodically, logically. There was no anger, just a sense of detachment, like reviewing a project that had been archived. By the end of the day, the house was ready to be listed. Another process, another series of steps. My mind, however, was already elsewhere. It was focused on the problem Mark now faced, whether he realized it or not. He had the contracts, the clients, the sales pitch. What he didn't have was the architecture, the deep understanding of the systems that delivered on those promises. He had the face of the company. I had been the engine. And I had just removed the engine. The next morning, I drove downtown. Found a small, unassuming office space for rent on the second floor of a quiet building. It was just 2 rooms, but it had good internet and a lock on the door. Perfect. I signed the lease on the spot. I used the savings I'd built up over the years. Not a fortune, but enough for a runway. I'd always kept a separate account, a habit formed early in my career, a contingency, a backup system. It wasn't for this specific scenario, but the principle applied. Be prepared. Next, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to David, the second to Maria. They were junior developers I'd mentored at the old company. Smart, eager, and frustrated by the lack of clear technical direction under Mark. I didn't explain everything. Just that I'd left and was starting something new, something focused purely on technical excellence and building robust solutions. I told them I needed the best, and I thought that was them. They both said yes without hesitation. They knew my work. They knew Mark's limitations. We met at the new office the next day. 3 desks, 3 laptops, a whiteboard. That was Apex Solutions. The name was deliberate. The highest point, the peak of technical capability. Our mission was simple. Build better systems. Provide reliable, efficient, and intelligently designed software solutions. We would target the market Mark served, but we would win on substance, not just salesmanship. We started with a core. I began designing a new platform architecture, cleaner, more scalable, more intuitive than the one I'd built for Mark. David and Maria jumped in, their enthusiasm infectious. We worked long hours. Days blurred into nights. The small office became our world. We coded, we debated technical approaches, we fueled ourselves on cheap coffee and the shared purpose of building something real, something that worked exactly as it was supposed to. Through David and Maria, who still had friends at the old company, I heard snippets of what was happening there. The data migration script I'd finished on my last day had hit unexpected snags without me there to troubleshoot the edge cases I'd anticipated. A major system update was delayed. Clients were calling with issues the remaining team couldn't quickly diagnose because they lacked the foundational knowledge of the system's architecture. Mark was reportedly stressed, trying to delegate technical tasks he didn't understand, leading to confusion and errors. Sarah was trying to manage client complaints, but she couldn't fix the underlying technical problems. The engine was sputtering. We weren't just building a new company. We were building a direct competitor, armed with the intimate knowledge of the systems we intended to replace and the clear advantage of focused technical leadership. I started making quiet calls to contacts in the industry, people who knew my reputation for delivering solid code and reliable systems. I wasn't pitching aggressively yet, just letting them know I was back, on my own, and building something new. Planting seeds. The ground was fertile. I knew the problems Mark's clients were starting to face. And I knew I had the solution. The first major win came 3 months after we opened the doors at Apex Solutions. It was the Henderson project, the one I'd been finishing the data migration script for on my last day at Mark's company. I knew their system's intricacies better than anyone. I knew the potential pitfalls Mark had likely stumbled into. We pitched not just a solution, but a guarantee of stability and seamless execution, backed by a detailed technical plan that demonstrated our understanding ran deeper than a sales deck. They signed. Landing Henderson was a turning point. It wasn't just revenue, it was validation. It sent a signal to the industry that Apex Solutions, this new, small player, could handle complex, high-stakes technical work. Other inquiries started coming in. Companies who were experiencing the exact kind of system instability and project delays I knew were happening at Marks. They were looking for an alternative, someone who could speak their language. The language of uptime, scalability, and clean code. We didn't have Mark's flashy office or his marketing budget. Our pitch was simple: we build things that work. We deliver on time. We understand the technology inside and out because we are the engineers. This resonated with clients who were tired of promises that weren't being met. We started winning more contracts, often from companies that were actively disengaging from Mark's services. Through David and Maria, the reports from the old company became more frequent and more concerning for Mark. The core platform I'd built was indeed showing its age without my constant oversight and the specific knowledge I held. Bug fixes were slow, new features were clunky, and the system was prone to unexpected outages. The junior developers who remained were overwhelmed, lacking the architectural context to effectively troubleshoot deep-seated issues. Mark, according to the reports, was furious. He was losing clients, and his attempts to personally manage the technical team were backfiring. He'd apparently hired a couple of expensive consultants, but without the foundational knowledge of the existing codebase, they were struggling to make meaningful improvements. The engine I'd built was complex, and without the original architect, reverse engineering it was proving difficult and costly. Sarah was still there, trying to manage the fallout. Her role seemed to have shifted from office manager to full-time client appeaser. I heard she was constantly on calls, trying to smooth over missed deadlines and system failures. It wasn't her fault, of course. She couldn't magic stable code into existence. But she was on the front lines of the collapse. One evening, leaving our office, I saw Mark and Sarah walking down the street. They looked different from the confident, easygoing pair I remembered. Mark's shoulders were slumped, his face tight with stress. Sarah walked slightly behind him, her expression drawn and worried. They were arguing in low tones. It wasn't the loud, performative anger Mark sometimes displayed. This was quiet, weary frustration. They didn't see me. I ducked into a doorway until they passed. It wasn't triumph I felt, just observation. The consequences were unfolding, visibly now. The face of the company was starting to show the strain of an engine that had failed. Our engine at Apex Solutions was just hitting its stride. The email arrived on a Thursday. Subject: Project Transfer Confirmation. Major client name. It was formal, concise, confirming the complete migration of their infrastructure project from Mark's company to Apex Solutions, effective the following month. This wasn't just another client. This was the keystone, the one that represented a significant percentage of Mark's remaining business. I read it, filed it, and went back to work. There was no dramatic internal monologue, no urge to celebrate wildly. It was simply the logical conclusion of a process set in motion months ago. The impact on Mark's company was swift and brutal. Losing their biggest client, coupled with the ongoing technical failures and the hemorrhaging of smaller accounts, was a fatal blow. Within weeks, rumors started circulating. Massive layoffs, the office space being downsized, key personnel leaving. The face of the company couldn't hide the fact that the engine had died. I saw Mark one last time, not in person, but in a business journal article. It was a short piece about the company's acquisition by a larger, less reputable firm, essentially a fire sale. Mark was quoted briefly, putting a brave face on it, talking about strategic pivots and new opportunities. He looked older, his usual confident swagger replaced by a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. There was no mention of Sarah in the article. I heard through the grapevine that Sarah had left the company shortly before the acquisition. Where she went, what she was doing, I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't feel the need to find out. The devastation for them wasn't something I had actively sought to inflict, but it was the predictable outcome of their choices. Mark had built a business on a foundation he didn't understand, relying on an engine he didn't value until it was gone. Sarah had chosen the face over the builder. The market, in its own cold, logical way, had delivered the consequences. I never contacted either of them. There was nothing to say. No accusations, no recriminations, no desire for closure. The silence between us was complete. Apex Solutions thrived. We moved into a larger office, hired more engineers. Talented people who were drawn to our focus on technical excellence and our straightforward approach. We weren't the biggest firm in the city, but we were known for reliability, for solving problems others couldn't, for building systems that simply worked. We became the go-to for companies who had been burned by providers who overpromised and underdelivered. My life found a new rhythm. Focused, productive, quiet. The empty house felt less like a void and more like a blank slate. I sold it eventually, another transaction, clean and simple. Used the money to buy a small plot of land outside the city, enough space to build something new, something entirely mine from the ground up. Looking back, it wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even really about Sarah or Mark anymore. It was about the work. About the quiet satisfaction of building something real, something functional, something that provided value. They had underestimated the engine, the invisible complexity that powered the visible facade. They had mistaken the face for the foundation. And when the foundation crumbled, the face had nowhere left to stand. I still code every day. I work with my team, solving problems, building systems. It's clean, logical, predictable. Unlike relationships, unlike people sometimes. But in the quiet hum of the servers, in the elegant lines of code, I found a different kind of certainty. I built this. And it works. That, in the end, was enough.